Welcome to the third episode of Living in My Mind. I have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Jai Simmons, known also as
Jai Ma.
The one thing about this show is we're going to bring individuals on to talk about their personal issues and their personal stories when it comes to mental health or things in society, family issues, things that everybody can relate to. And that's the beauty of bringing someone on like Jai, who's very open and honest, who has her own story. And remember, these are our stories that we're sharing. So there's nothing right, nothing wrong. But if you can learn from what we're bringing to the table and it affects you, then, join us. We're going to be having a phone number here coming up to have people call in or text us to share their thoughts. So let's start with Miss Jai. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. I was really surprised you wanted me on your podcast, so
Why?
I'm glad to be here. I don't know. I thought I was the person behind the camera most of the time, so I wasn't like, but
No,
I'm glad to be here.
I want people, look, I first put this podcast together to work. I had a partner who was an NBA coach. He was going to do the podcast with me, and we were going to do athletes and stuff. And it's nice, and we still will have some. But the reality is people who deal with this day to day, people need to know they're just like us. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not an athlete. And, you have a career, you do things, but you deal with issues based upon being a woman, also being African American. And I think people need to know that they can relate to you and that it's okay. Because as you know, every culture has macho men and macho women. And every culture thinks they have the answers. And the reality is none of us really have the answer. So you as a young woman, what are some of the things you face that affect you from an emotional point of view, whether it's in society, relationships, just being a young girl? What affects you?
I don't know. I would say like take what affects men and then switch it to a little bit more intense. You're dealing with hormones that change on a daily, weekly basis that no one seems to like take into account. Mm-hmm. And there's also like this facade or persona that you have to keep up with every day, every week, and have to let people know that, hey, I'm delicate, but I'm strong and I don't,
So that facade that you're talking about, is that brought upon you by other people? Or is it that you feel at times you need to be a part of that so that you function in society and you don't have to share what's going on?
I think that it's a mix of all of that. I don't think it's as black and white, but mostly what people expect of you, or, we're all taught like growing up, you should act this way. And if you act out of that way, you get negative feedback. So you're just kind of like conditioned and taught to conduct yourself.
What was your upbringing like in that respect to, having a mom as a role model, teaching you how to be a young lady, helping you go through what girls go through when you get your first period, when you get your first boyfriend, all these different things. There's a lot of young ladies out there that don't even know what it's like because the mother's never spoken to them. What was it like for you as a child growing up?
As a child, well, I was fortunate to have like three other sisters in the house.
Wow.
And a single mother. So there was tons of like female energy and
that's wonderful.
We had lots of fun, but I didn't really realize how like we were poor, but I didn't realize
I'm right there with you, sister.
Because
I'm white trash.
Yeah.
I grew up in a trailer.
Yeah. We're out here with just trash. It's crazy because like, I didn't realize how my upbringing, I was without a lot because we were just taught to survive. Like I was taught at a young age, do whatever you have to do to survive. We didn't have like electricity and like water a lot of the time. So we learned how to take bird baths and, we became really like adventurous with our techniques, like boiling water on the coffee pot to get some hot water. And
it's funny you mentioned that because I think no matter who we are, we all grow up that. I was raised by mother, grandmother, and great grandmother, no father, extremely poor. But those ladies, and I'm sure just like your mom, made sure that you had everything that you wanted. So we actually thought that we were rich because we got everything. Then when you get older and you realize all the little other people out there that you deal with,
you realize other people have more than you.
Yes, and it's
like,
okay. But so that's how you grew up. How did you bring that into being an adult woman? Once you got older, did you change your point of view on things? Because growing up poor, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of mental health issues that revolve around that because we want to be like other people. I went to school, kids were cruel to us. They'd call us names, make fun of us because we didn't have anything. I didn't have a dad. And they'd make fun of my mother and grandmother, and my brother and I would fight our way home from school. How did you handle, if you handled any pressure from kids stating to you anything about growing up in that type of lifestyle?
You know what? No one knew because my mom was so adamant on no one is supposed to know what your home looks like. No one is supposed to know. No one should know if you got holes at the bottom of your feet, if your clothes were your sister's 2 years before. It was shut mouth. You're not supposed to really talk about that. So we never really got it. I mean, I don't even think people knew we didn't have a dad. It was just kind of like going with the emotions. And also we were taught to like fit in a lot of the time. So we learned how to fit in the ways that mattered. And I also had sisters to protect me in school. So nobody really messed with me until like high school.
Now,
when my sisters left.
Growing up without a father, I've had the same experience. What was it like for you? Since you said you didn't have a dad in your life.
Well, I had it. Okay, so the funny thing is, like, he was in my life, but in and out, like very much in and out. Not he didn't have like a steady. I don't remember even like being with him more than a year. So it was off and on, and we had summers at his house, but it wasn't great summers. And I think all I knew was that I had a dad, and he just didn't want to be around as much, and he kept having kids.
How did that affect your relationships when you got older? Because a lot of people, didn't have a dad, so there's abandonment issues. There's why did person not love me enough to stick around? Criminal activity. I mean, my father did it all. So it was kind of like, and I used to believe that, someone had said to me once, well, you're the reason your dad left. I'm like, fuck, I was 6 months old.
Yeah. No, you're not the reason that your father left. He's a grown man.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was in and out of jail. Like growing up, my mom met him while he was in jail, which is a story.
That's a story of a different name.
Yes, that is a story of a different name. It all started with the phone call. So all I knew was that he was in and out of jail. And all I wanted, I guess, growing up without a dad, you didn't really notice it until things that were surrounding, like having a father, would happen. So like father-daughter dances. Oh, I remember that was the first time I had ever felt so sad about not having a dad.
How old were you?
I was in elementary school. I think I was in maybe the 6th grade or 5th or 6th grade. And everyone had a dad to go with. And I was just like, embarrassed that I had to even ask my mom, or that I was sad to tell my mom. I didn't want to make her feel bad.
Yeah.
So my uncle took me, and
well, see, there's always someone to help replace. My brother and I went through the same thing. We went to a all boys high school, and they'd have father-son things. And, you'd see all this stuff, and I'm like, well, okay. And the one thing I grew up with, and this is something I tell people, I never had a dad, so I don't know what I missed.
Yeah.
Having someone come in and out of your life. There is that. I just don't know. Like, I've never been married. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, yes. You don't miss what's not there.
That's it.
But I think, in my opinion, I'd rather him have like not been there at all than come in and out. Because forth. I think that's more traumatizing than not having a dad and not knowing where he is.
So at your age, how old are you?
I'm 24 right now.
Think about that?
Yeah. Well, because I like to say 25. I always try to like feel older than I am, but because I'll be 25 next month. So.
Okay. You're almost 25.
I'm getting ready. I'm practicing.
Wow, you're practicing for 25. I'd like to know what the hell. We'll do that sometime. I'm practicing for 25. Well, the reason why I asked that is because, like I said, things affect us differently.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit older than you. But the bottom line is we still have a connection with the way we grew up. Mm-hmm. No matter I'm a man, you're a woman, the color of our skin, our religion, what have you. So as you got older, you can see how it bothers you. You can see how it feels. Mm-hmm. How does that affect you now when you've had relationships or when you meet a man? Do you feel at times, because I know I've met women, I'm like, okay, they're going to be around. What's going to happen here if I open up, if they say, and am I screwed? So how have you handled that for yourself?
The first man that a woman loves is her father. And that's just, it is what it is. He teaches her how to receive love from a man, how you should be treated. And you watch that vice versa from your parents interacting with each other, what a relationship looks like and a healthy relationship looks like with the man. I wasn't taught that. And also my uncles they weren't like crazy into my life. So, I never learned that. And growing up, I absolutely had my issues with men, the men that I chose. And I never really put that off to daddy issues until I went to therapy, and I was like, yeah, I crave this male attention. So I wasn't making the best decisions, and I was also dating extremely older than I was. So like being 20, dating a 55-year-old, you know, and I didn't think that was a problem until I realized that certain men like to pry on young women who, one, don't have fathers in their lives, who may have like some type of trauma. But yeah, I definitely made like horrible decisions, but I also learned a lot from having that absentee father in my life, and also knowing like the kind of person he is. I wasn't gonna end up with my children having a father like that.
Let me ask you a question. You talk about older men.
Yeah.
Do you not feel though that a lot of younger women in society attach on to someone who's older because
yes, I do.
Because of money, because of stability? So I mean, there are those men and women that are leeches. There are that prey on each other, but there also is a lot of stability sometimes if it's for the right reasons, and a lot of times it could be for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify
reasons.
that, because you know there's a lot of men out there that aren't predators.
There is. Okay, so I would like to also clarify that when I did not see a problem, because I liked the stability. I liked the fact that like older men, whether they be 12 to 13 years older than me, which my current partner is 13 years older than me, or they're like over 20 years. And I realized that I like that stability, and I like the fact that one, this man could take charge, or he knows who he is. I've dated all kinds, mind you. Like I wasn't just like dating older men exclusively all the time. It was like sometimes I would date someone my age, sometimes I would date people a few older or a few years older, but I generally like being with someone older, one, just because of myself. Like I feel I have that more maturity, or they match my lifestyle a bit more.
Well, you said the big thing in there. Women mature a lot faster than men.
Yeah.
Literally, emotionally, for whatever
and also,
reason.
no one has time for this. Like, I mean, the 23-year-old men now are not the same as they were, like, as far as like how serious they are about dating and how they treat other women and what that looks like, courting, dating. I like the traditional. I like traditional dating. So all of that has helped mold you to the person you are today. Absolutely.
At almost 25. Let's not forget that.
Almost 25.
So when you have, no, I mean, because it's just funny. You've obviously gone through a hell of a lot for being a 24-year-old woman. So like now, when you ever have memories of what happened younger that affect you now? Situations that pop up. I know there's situations like I deal with an eating disorder. When someone says you're going to eat all that, first thing that does is take me back, and I can be blinded, almost like the sun is in my eyes, because it angers me. It makes me feel degraded, to feel shamed. So do you have situations that take you back that you have to work through at that moment to right the ship for yourself so you don't go backwards?
Absolutely.
What type of moments?
I think, well, growing up, again, with being poor and not wanting to let people in on the situation that you're living in, you become very secretive, and also you become very like, you can't be yourself. It's all about, how do I put this face on so people think that's who I am, but when I come home, it's a completely different situation.
Oh, yes.
You know, we always put on that facade, or that face for others. And I think now what's happened is I start to feel inadequate, like, oh, you know, that imposter syndrome where you've never had anything. So do I deserve everything?
So you feel at times, no, that's a legitimate thing. So you feel at times that maybe you're not worth it, or that you don't deserve it.
That I'm not worth it. That I'm not worth it.
But then what happens? Do you sit back and you realize I'm worth it? How does that affect you? From an
I think I have a
view?
really hard time like telling myself things sometimes. Like I try to practice it, but I don't believe it until someone else tells me.
I would say when someone else tells you, but are you one of those people that if someone says you're beautiful, you're talented, you're creative, you're like, well, fuck, I hate this person. They got to be stupid. I don't see that.
I just curl up in a ball and I disappear when that
so
happens.
it's hard for you to take compliments.
It is, absolutely. And I also don't believe them. I never believe them. I like internalize it.
What's the reason? Okay, you're very creative.
Yeah.
So you know that, correct?
Yes.
You know you're smart. You know you have a brilliant mind.
Yes.
Okay. So when someone else tells you that, why would you doubt them when you yourself tell yourself that you're that?
Well, because like I feel when you get your accolades and when you get recognition, it's because someone told you because they tell you that's how they feel about you. You get this award because we think you're amazing, not that because you think you're amazing. I don't know. I can't really like unpack it as much as I'd want to, but I just know that I have an issue with accepting good things being told about me. And yeah, I grew up being never feeling pretty enough, or I wasn't pretty enough. And, you know, growing up not being the beauty standard.
Okay, so when you say beauty standard, you're talking about beauty standard of all women, beauty standard in your community?
What all women in your community, all of that. So, of course, being a woman, you have comparing yourself to other women. Being a black woman, you have yourself comparing yourself to other women, plus the beauty standard that is being shown on television and your magazines, everything you watch, plus the black community who says you should also look a certain type of way.
Have you had backlash from the black community, the way that you look now?
Oh, yeah. The black community judges you the most.
So what kind of backlash do you get?
Not at the moment. Okay, so I wouldn't say my appearance, if anything, gets backlash from the black community. It's more like your demeanor, because you can never be black enough, or you can never act black enough. You can never act too black. You can always be on one side of the spectrum. There's you're always being judged for being on either side.
So basically you're judged by your own community, but also, sadly, white people, Asian people. So you've got a lot of different people.
That's the way it is in every single culture.
Oh,
Mexican, Asian, white. Like white people have that weird like hair colored thing where if you're blonde or brunette, like I just learned that, which is crazy. But I just
when you think about it, what percentage of women cultures do you think have more plastic surgery in this country?
Oh, I don't know.
White women.
Is it?
Well, because white women are, you know, what women go through is despicable to me. From the time you're young until the time you're adult, because there's always somebody saying you're not good enough, you're not better. You know, it's here's an interesting one. If I'm a man, if someone said to me, Dennis, how do you like women to look? And if I gave you a description, some people say, oh, well, that's, you know, you're misogynistic. No, because I don't like somebody the way they look doesn't mean I'm just not. Now, if they ask a woman, do you like a dad bod? And a woman says, yes, it's kind of like, but you're kind of like looking at a man and saying, yeah, I don't mind if a man's fat. Now, if I said, I don't mind if a woman has an extra 10 pounds, oh, you're an SOB, and that's...
You know why I think that is?
Why?
Because if you are any marginalized group, I feel like if you come from any kind of oppressed or marginalized group, you don't have as much stigma of saying what you want. Because for a long time, over the years, since manhood was even born, right, or manhood became a society, women were always, how can you mold yourself to be pleasing to the male eye?
Of course.
And also being controlled by men.
Yes.
We weren't allowed to even have an opinion. So like once that was able to like, you know, once we were able to have an opinion or to say like what our preferences are, it was like, okay, it's more of like a balance that's happening right now. So the question of why is it okay when women do it? It's like, well, I think we're right now balancing out like the fact that it's okay for anyone to have a preference and not to take it so personally, but like it's where that preference stems from is the issue.
That's exactly what it is, because it's like you said, I mean, there are other countries that if a man is heavier, it's wealthier and they're more attractive to people. And like you said too, it's like you hit on something real good, talking about oppression, about things from the past. You know, everybody, we know about slavery. We know about that. We know exactly what's happened. And people think that there's no such thing as modern day slavery. They're wrong. They don't think the prejudice still exists. They're wrong. And you have a lot of people who deny it because that's the way they were brought up, or they want to put their head in the sand like an ostrich and not have to deal with it. So you've dealt with that your whole life.
Yeah.
And so what are instances that have set you backwards to where you think, well, fuck it. Am I ever going to get through this? Is anybody going to ever change? How do you handle that to where it helps you from an emotional point of view to be okay?
I think just not giving a fuck. Like I just can't I just can't care. I can't care, because if you keep caring about what other people are saying and thinking, or if you meet this standard, if you meet that standard, like it's never going to go in your favor. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I think the best thing to do is just to not care and just to be an individual. Growing up, I think what the media has shown me of what beauty looks like, especially now, like with the R&B rap community, or like women in the entertainment business, it's like sex appeal. You have to have long, straight weaves, bust downs, and like hair. And that's beauty, and you have to be beat. Like your face has to be. So
what do you think? Do you think it's beauty?
I think everything is beautiful, but like
But that specific thing, I understand everything. But do you think that creates a problem for young girls?
It does. I think it does, because you're showing girls who, one, grow up watching these women and like grow up idolizing them, and you're showing them that is the only way you're going to be valued.
How do you think social media plays into that? Because you're big in social media. Mm-hmm. For what you do for a career and helping yourself, but helping others. How do you think social media, even though that it's great that social media is out there, because anybody can become famous, anybody can become a celebrity, anybody, you just get people to like you and different type of things. Yeah. How do you think the social media plays on that when it comes to women, when it comes to their mental health issues that they deal with at whatever age they're dealing with?
I think social media is getting better at it, honestly, right now. Like
getting better, I agree, but what do you think it does to help create emotional issues or help perpetrate if someone's
okay, so social media, well, the likes and the followers and losing followers.
And do you see that a lot of women will do a lot of different things on social media just to get a like?
Just to keep, yeah. Well, you're dangling. Okay, so if you're getting great feedback for doing one thing, you're going to keep doing that one thing. It's really hard to judge people, because I try not to do this.
Well, it's not judging. But like, it's an opinion. Yeah. And everybody thinks that you have an opinion, you're judging. We're not judging anybody. You're just saying what you feel. We're not judging, but I don't judge anybody that does it. Hell, we're on there. We're doing our thing.
In my opinion.
There you go.
In my opinion, social media isn't great for your mental health if you're using it in a way that like you need the value from yourself. Like if you connect your value to what your social media's value is, that's when things go wrong. Okay. Right now I use mine as a business and not like as anything that I feel makes me a better person or makes me more valuable to society. Mm-hmm. My relationship with social media has changed. I was absolutely posting stuff to get likes and to like, and I still do sometimes. Like, we post
but there's
things
nothing wrong with that. All of us, it's nice to have validation.
Yeah.
It's like when Facebook first started, everybody wanted to, how many friends could you have?
Yeah. And you don't even know them.
You don't even know who the hell they are. No. It's like, if you think about it, like in your life, when you are dealing with anything that can make you depressed, when you're depressed or you're anxious or you feel like less than, what are some of the things that you do that aren't healthy for yourself, that you know aren't healthy? Because I do those at times too. I know they're not healthy, but it feels good. It's a comfort. It's like a warm blanket or a puppy laying on you, just so comfy.
Yeah.
But then I realize when I wake up, Holy Mother of God, I've just set myself back. Do you ever go through those days? And if you do, what do you do to get out of those days, and how do you move forward?
I do. I get in those days. And I think what perpetuates it going longer, or me getting into a depressive mode, is just like letting that thought simmer and just believing it. Like if something comes in my head and it's like, you fucking suck, you're never going to be successful, there are better people out there, and you see them on your Instagram.
Let me ask you, anybody ever tell you that you're not good enough, that you suck, that other people are better, other people are attractive in your life?
Yeah.
Anybody ever said that to you?
No one ever said it, but I took it that way by their choice.
Okay.
If you made the choice to not go with me or to not choose me, that's you telling me I fucking suck.
That used to happen to me in kickball when I was a kid.
Kickball?
I was the only one left. Somebody had to take me to make the team.
Oh, that's sad.
That's true. They're dead now. But, at least I'm praying they are. Well, see, I think that's it. We take something and we just make it 10 times worse than it actually is.
Yeah, we roll with it.
You say hello to somebody and somebody doesn't say hello back.
You're like, fuck you.
What the fuck? Is somebody else like me? I'm going to follow that mother. It's like, but then again, if we sit back, and this is something I've learned, that not everybody's going to like me. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to believe in me. Yep. Not everybody's going to trust me. And we do have pasts where we've done things that people aren't going to trust us. So, when we deal with depression, anxiety, or whatever type of mental health issue we have, it's always looking for a solution. And we're going to have those issues for a long time.
Yeah.
They don't go away, because it's like anything, it's repetitive. You might have a great day, meet some idiot the next day. Things might go good today, tomorrow they don't go like that. So I've learned that I have to be slow. Even though I abuse the hell out of myself in my head, when other people don't give me what I think I need, and that's the big point to me, what I think I need, then I get upset. I don't really need that. So when you're dealing with, men, like you said, you have a partner that's 13 years older. Okay. So when you're dealing with someone, it's great for the stability. It's great that you can trust that person and have a great relationship with that person.
Yeah.
So when you start feeling like you did in the past in a different type of relationship, how do you handle that with that person? So
I tell them.
you talk.
We
you
communicate like crazy. I think the best thing to do is to just tell people how you feel. If I'm feeling like, like what you just did there, I felt like it was something that my ex would have done, and like it's triggering me, or it's like making me feel like we're gonna be doomed, or hey, I feel like I'm feeling a little jealous of this thing. Like,
so you talk about it.
I talk about it.
And how does your partner do? Does he talk?
He's very receptive
to listen.
And to hear
what
it's to
you
listen
say.
and hear, because it's not about him. His feelings are not about him. My feelings are not about him. It's about me. And it's about like what he did made me feel that kind of way. But it's something that, one, I have to look at myself and say, okay, are you saying this because you're really offended, or because you like need to deal with something deep down that's making you feel this way?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of looking at yourself and but it always has something to do with like your partner, and if they are that receptive, and if they are that kind of person. Because if you're dealing with someone who doesn't like to listen, or doesn't feel like they do anything wrong ever, you're never going to get anywhere with that. So
you and I both have people in our life that are more codependent than a dog, because dogs are codependent on us. Without us, they don't get food, they don't get sunshine, they don't get walks. Yep. So what's your advice to someone? Because sometimes people will stay in a relationship just because they got nobody else.
Yeah.
Just because the sex might be great. I can put up with everything just to have the sex, or I don't want to be lonely.
Yeah.
So you've been in those positions?
I've been in a lot of positions.
So when you find yourself by yourself, are you able to live with yourself? Meaning, are you able to accept now, even though you still go through things and we understand, are you able to accept now that, I'll be okay? And how do you do that? So when people are listening, I want them to, if you can do it, how can they do it?
Well, I had to, one, recognize that I was a lonely person, and
how did you do that?
That I didn't like to be alone. Well, I went to therapy because I couldn't do it myself.
How long ago did you start therapy?
I started therapy. Well, I've always dealt with like pretty intense anxiety disorder and depression. So that started more when I was like 18. I didn't go to therapy until 20 years old. And after therapy, I realized, I have a problem that I can't fix by myself.
Can I ask you a question? And a lot of people I don't think understand this. There's therapists out there that are wonderful, but there's also therapists. I work in a community where there's different cultures, there's different people, whether they're gay, straight, go by different pronouns, whatever. Did you find a therapist that understood your culture as well? Because I think a lot of people go to therapy and they think, you're a therapist, you got a PhD. You're very smart. Well, if they don't understand where you're coming from, so how did you find someone who understood your culture? Was it an African-American therapist? If you don't mind me asking that, because I think it's important that people know you don't just go to the first person that says they're a therapist.
Yeah. So the first thing that happened was I did like a telehealth therapist where, you talk to them over the phone. My first therapist was in college, and it was like a campus therapist. She was young, and Asian woman. She was really nice, but I just didn't feel she was like understanding me. And so I stopped going to her, and then I went to a man, and I was like, I don't think a man is gonna help me either, like for what I need. And then I was like, I think what I need is someone who I can see myself in, or who like feels like they could really understand me from the deep core. If I'm talking about something that I dealt with that only a Black child can deal with and like knows about, or some things that are so rooted in our culture and our history that stem from like my issues, I need someone who can understand that. So I, at the end of the day, went to a Black woman who I felt understood me the most, but it's really just about like who you feel like you can listen to the most.
That's an important thing for people to realize, that it's about who you feel. Even if it's you went to a Black woman and for a period of time went great, but then it didn't go great because the mind is the mind.
Yeah.
However we're born, whatever family, religion, what have you, that's a different thing. but finding someone who really understands you, doesn't matter who they are, what they are. But I think it's interesting that a lot of times, like in my field, we'll have a lot of young gay men and women that come in, and some of the therapists never worked with the gay community.
Yeah.
They can do more harm than they can do anything, because you're taking someone and not understanding, and you're saying, well, here's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when a therapist tells you, here's what you need to do, you get out the door, you set their house on fire, because let me tell you, they don't know what you need to do. They should just, and again, a joke, they should basically guide you to make those decisions and say, here's one, here's another. So how long ago you went to therapy? So do you still see a therapist?
I don't, because I didn't think I needed it at the time anymore. But again, like as you grow up, you start uncovering more things that you need to fucking fix. You're just like I feel like a car. Like you just always have to do maintenance. And so, yeah,
Hopefully
I need to go back.
New car, yes.
I think at this point in time in my life, I feel like I need a therapist.
Well, the good thing is you're willing to admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're willing to admit it. And that's the hardest thing to do is telling yourself like you have a problem. And again, like the answer to your last question about how I learned that I wasn't okay with being alone. I went to therapy and I physically decided to be single for 2 years. I was like, I'm not going to date. I'm just going to be alone. I lived alone. So I spent a lot of time alone, and I realized how much I like spending time with myself and being alone, because, you know, I was doing puzzles, I was drinking in my own house, and I was having a fucking fun time. And
please tell me you're not a cat person.
I am. I have 2 cats.
Oh, there you go. Cat ladies. Ladies, look what you have to look forward to. 2 years of solitude with cats.
Yeah.
Do you really have 2 cats?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're both named after David Bowie, so that shows you a lot.
So one's David, one's Bowie?
Nope, one's Bowie and one's Ziggy Stardust.
Well, how the hell would I know? You just said named after David Bowie.
Yeah, his stage name is Ziggy Stardust. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with myself, and within that time, I got to know myself a lot.
So now, when you get up in the morning, what makes you say, you know, I want to have a good day? I'm going to have a good day. What do you do to help yourself now to move forward, even though you still struggle at times? How do you help yourself daily? What helps you as a person?
I think the things I consume, so how much I have control over my day, what kinds of decisions that I make in the beginning of the day say a lot about what's going to happen at the end or throughout. So I think what's helped me a lot is just taking care of myself. If I feel like I'm taking care of myself, like maybe doing like a, you know, face routine or doing my hair or taking a shower, like just taking care of myself. I feel good. I feel like I'm being nurtured, and that helps me out through the rest of the day.
So I take it from listening to you, you don't rely on somebody else to make your day better. You make your day better.
Yes.
I think one of the big things, a lot of us who deal with the issues we have, that sometimes we hope somebody's going to help us make our day better. We hope they're going to understand us. We hope they're going to say whatever we think we need to hear them say. And the reality is we can do it. It's not easy. Yeah. And I've been in therapy for years, and I'm sure my therapist went to therapy because of doing therapy with me.
Yeah.
You know, because you explain things to them, you know, some interesting stories, but you explain things to them, and a therapist has their limits as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's like one of those things, like when I was younger, I used to write goals. I knew I could never reach the goals, but then at the end of the day, I didn't reach them. I'd be depressed. I'm like, gives me a reason to act out on the addiction things that I liked, and I always had an excuse. So when you have a bad day and you do something that you know isn't healthy, do you make excuses, or do you say to yourself, oh,
no, I just am like, you fucking idiot. Like, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You knew it's going to make you feel bad, and you did it anyway. So
and then how do you
it's a lot of self accountability.
So when you do that and you beat yourself up,
yeah,
how long before you're over that beat up?
Pretty quick. Pretty quick. I don't like to feel bad. I really don't. Like, I'm one of those people who like,
well, I would hope not, for Christ's sake.
I hate feeling bad, and I hate like being hurt and stuff.
Yeah.
So I try to get better as soon as possible. Like, I'm like, okay, what's going to make me feel better right now?
Do you ever have that fear that you're around people, you say something, you do something, oh my God, they might have hurt their feelings or might have offended them? Do you worry about that, or do you wait till someone says something to you?
I wait until they say something, because I like to communicate to people how I feel, and if they made me feel any kind of way, and I think I expect that from other people too. And a lot of times I have a hard time I associate myself through others, where I'm like, okay, so if I know something's wrong, or if I'm pretty, like, I understand how what I do affects other people a lot of the time. And then when they don't have the same like courtesy, or when they don't have the same emotional intelligence, I'm like, what? It just doesn't, people don't make sense to me. But then I realize, oh, like not everyone is going to be as aware.
True.
And this is not me. Well, I'm tooting my own horn because I feel like, and I like telling people how it is. I like telling people.
How good are you with setting boundaries and keeping them? Because boundaries are, we have people in our lives that, lack of better term, suck us in because we feel for them. We know for them. We can see ourselves in them. And we know some maybe might have given us a chance. But how good are you setting a boundary and boom, this person's out of my life now. Doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah.
Are you good with that? Or is that a hard thing still for you?
No, it was hard before. I think before, like I would say 3 years ago, I had no boundaries for myself. I just let people do whatever they wanted to me.
So people can understand.
So yeah, I had friendships who treated me any kind of way. I had men treat me any kind of way. I just didn't, I think because I didn't care for myself. And when you don't have boundaries, you don't hold yourself as high as a regard as you do other people. You didn't have a lot
of self-love, I take it.
I have a lot of self-love
back then.
No, before, I didn't. I cut my hair because I needed to have self-love. Like that's how serious I was about my growth. What was the question again? I forgot.
I don't know, and I even asked it. So let's back it. No, about back then when you didn't have when you didn't like yourself. Okay, that was one thing. Now you do. How do you handle that now? Say if you start going backwards. I don't know if it's the same question, but this sounds good to me coming out of my mouth.
It sounds good.
But how do you handle it now? Because we're always going to have residual.
Yeah.
So like you said, what I was asking, are you able to cut people out now or remember? Thank God for those memory pills.
Yes, I am. I think I'm less forgiving now, if anything. Because
of others, but
of
more
others.
Forgiving of yourself.
I'm more forgiving of myself, less forgiving of others, because I was too forgiving of others and less forgiving of myself before. So I have a hard time like letting go of the shit people do. So right now my boundaries are like set. If you cross them, you're not in my life anymore. But I also try like the art of like forgiveness and like figuring out why they acted the way they acted. And
well, it's always good to figure it out because we're no better than other people, and we've done a lot of shit in our lives.
No, we're not any fucking better. If there was a camera on me 24/7 and everyone got to watch, they would know who the hell I am. It's
not easy. It's not easy. People knowing who we are, because reality is a lot of times we don't know who the hell we are.
Yeah.
So we'll go out and we'll put a facade on, whether it's for a business meeting or whether it's for going hanging out with your girlfriends or with your boyfriend or whatever the situation is. We can compartmentalize, whatever that word is.
Compartmentalize.
Thank you very much. Do we have someone who can spell that for me? No. And no, I was going to try.
I was going to try too.
Yeah, but I think that's important. But one thing I want to get to before we're done here, because we're done here in a little bit. As a woman, not color your skin, not your hair. As a woman, what advice do you give young ladies or any woman that's dealing with depression, anxiety, needs to feel as if they have to look a certain way? They need to have their lips done. They need to have Botox. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. I'm not saying there's, but some people take it excessive.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give someone who's struggling with that about themselves, whether it's body image or whether it's, am I sexy enough? Am I pretty enough? Because I think people don't realize everybody likes something different. Not everybody likes the same thing, but a lot of us feel like, well, that person never said anything. So as a woman, what advice would you give? How would you help women to get through those? And I know you do talk to young ladies and you help other people. How do you work with that with them at this time?
I would say just try to become as self-aware as possible. So like if you have a thought that goes, oh, I hate this about myself. I hate my nose. Why do I hate my nose? Like try to dig a little deeper into that feeling and get to the root of the problem. Because a therapist doesn't have to do it for you. You can do it for yourself in that way. So really understanding why you feel the way you feel. And if it really is something that bothers you and it's not something that you're trying to just like please others to look at you, then do it. Like personally, I have struggled a lot with my appearance, a lot. And I'm like, I get to a place where I'm happy about it and I'm like, cool. But there's one thing that I still freaking hate. And that is? And that's my teeth. Like I hate my gap or just like my teeth in general. Right. And no matter how much someone tells me it looks amazing, it's been something I struggled with since I was young. I've tried to fix it multiple times and I had to like really think like, is this something that I want to fix because I feel like other people don't like it or because I don't like it. So until I find that out, I will say, no, don't fix my teeth. Don't do anything until you really say, I just don't like my teeth.
Yeah.
Then fix it.
And I think it's good that, I think one of the worst things that people do is they'll ask 10 different people an opinion and they won't even listen because they want everybody's opinion. And like you just said, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It matters what you think. And if what you think is real and that's something that's caused you to dislike yourself or not care for yourself, I've mentioned in the past, how I don't like to see myself because I see a monster for things I've done, and also physically, I think I look a certain way, which is, in my mind, is not that great. It's pretty bad. But in reality, I know it's different. But it's just hard to keep that reality up all the time.
It is really hard.
It's exhausting.
I don't even have a problem with augmentation. I don't. Get whatever you need to get done. I think it's just like the mental health that follows behind that feeling of I don't feel great. Figure out why, and then figure out if you want to do that thing. Like there are women who have had babies and had not been able to snap back and just want to feel like a hot piece of girl, Well, I think and they want to get something fixed. And I think you are perfectly fine for doing that.
Get whatever you want fixed.
Yeah.
But you hit it earlier. When you do it for the wrong reasons, even if you get your body sculptured the way you want, if this isn't working right, and your heart's not working right, I sound like a freaking idiot. This and that. Like, we are now going to the Discovery Channel. Jesus loves you. Baby Jesus loves you.
Baby Jesus in a cradle.
I think that's the hard part is because just as you fix the outside, it has no bearing on what's on the inside. And a lot of people have issues with therapy, think it's not going to work. I think that it can help you. It can also hurt you. It could be a crutch.
Yeah.
And another thing is, there's meds that people can help and different things. But the good thing is you've created something for yourself that allows you to have boundaries with yourself and others. And I think boundaries are important. Once we have boundaries, then we can take a look, what do I need in my life?
Yeah.
Do I want that person in my life? And I think we all have to become aware. If we allow people in our life, we don't deserve abuse, mental, physical, sexual. We deserve nothing of that. But if you allow someone to torture you mentally and treat you a certain way, then you really need to look at that. And if you grew up that way, and that's all you've seen, because you mentioned earlier about having family. I mentioned about having family. I never had a father figure. I don't know. All I know, the man tried to kill my mother once. Not a great person that I would think in my life. So the fact is, you have to have some type of example. But the most important thing is you become your own example. Yeah. And you live by what you say. And look, we're all hypocrites to a degree.
And it's a lot of work. I fail at it.
It's harder
a lot.
than making hard-boiled eggs.
I fail at it a lot. Some days I wake up and I'm like, fuck, this is not gonna be a good day. I'm not happy about how I look. I'm not happy about how anything's turning out.
But let me ask you a question.
Not perfect.
When you feel that way, your responsibilities to other, work-wise and business-wise, do you carry that out?
Yeah, I have to.
That's the beauty of it. And I don't mean that in a negative way or condescending. The fact is you might not feel the way you should or hopefully could feel about yourself, but you're not going to let it affect others.
Life moves on.
Many people let it affect others. They lose their jobs, they lose relationships, they lose their children, because a lot of us will play victims, and we are victimized to a degree. But when we victimize ourselves, which a lot of people don't understand, we do it all the time. I've done it for years in the past. I made a victim of me. Nobody else did. But the good thing is, you've come on here, you've shared things. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you did because, there's a lot that people can learn. A lot that people can understand. What are you laughing at?
I was smiling.
Oh, no, I was a little insecure. I thought you were laughing at me. But
yeah, Dennis, I'm laughing at you. You look amazing, and I'm laughing at you.
Do not. Go ahead, repeat that, please. No.
You look amazing, and I'm laughing at you.
Well, thank you. You're the one that helped me. A little arrogant, aren't you? You're the one that dressed me.
You look great,
But I think that's important that people understand. Look, we're joking too, because there's a lot of funny stuff that comes with having mental health issues.
It is pretty funny.
It's funny. You got to laugh at it. You can't be so crazed about it. You've got to really work with it. So I just want to say thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And stay positive. I think keeping positive thoughts and try not to let those negative thoughts take over.
Positivity is something good. And sometimes you got to go with the good and the bad and just realize where you're at and be responsible to yourself. So what I would like to say is that thank you for watching this episode, and I'd like you to tune in. What we're doing here is we're really talking to individuals about what's going on in their lives, sharing their lives with you, It doesn't matter if they're a celebrity. It doesn't matter if they're in sports. It doesn't matter if they own a corporation. We're all alike in many different ways when it comes to these issues. If you'd like to follow us, if you'd like to contact us, we're on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Also, we have a phone number that you'll be able to reach out to us. And the more important thing is, if you need help, we definitely can help you. We'll help you find some help out there that's there, whether it comes to therapists or facilities. We'll explain more, but thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.